broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Survivor Worlds Apart After Show here on AfterBuzz. My name is Nando Velasquez. You can find me on Twitter at NandoVel. And across from me today is Mr.
Hi,
James
guys.
Wallington.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, and we can find you at
James Wallington on Twitter. I'm sad that I don't have Keaton next to me today.
Yeah, we're missing Keaton today. Keaton had something she just could not get out of for this week, but she will be back next week.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll bring that up first of all. So first of all, you know, thanks a lot for tuning in to us on YouTube. We were streaming last week. We're not streaming live this week on YouTube, but you can still comment to us on YouTube. We appreciate all the comments we've been getting. You know, I haven't looked at iTunes in the past couple of days, but would love to see some more ratings on iTunes.
We
as
do
well.
actually have a few. I
think
looked
there were
the
a
other
few.
day, and there were some really nice comments about our panel, so that was really nice.
I know for some people it's a new change. But, you know, just like you can get used to a new cast every season of Survivor.
Amen. That's a really good way of putting it.
I think you can kind of, you know, you can kind of get used to us a little bit. But thank you for the love. And even some of you guys who posted and said, well, I kind of miss the old way, you know, the old people in the old way. You know, I understand. We hear you. But for now, give us a shot.
Amen.
I think we do a pretty good job. Anyway, so let's talk about this episode. I love this episode. It's called "It Will Be My Revenge."
Yes.
And that was uttered by. I love how every title is always uttered by someone. That was uttered by Nina.
Yep.
We need to predict. Yeah, we need to find out what the title is ahead of time and do a little contest and figure out who's gonna be the person saying that. Because I think it's a cool little contest. But let's start off. We don't have pictures this week in this studio. That we're in a different studio as last week. But let's start off this week talking about the blue team, blue collar.
Yes.
And you know, we opened up the show with Dan, and you know, Dan was pretty much on the hot seat last week with the women, but this week it seems like he has no seat.
He has no seat. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
For me, with Dan, the more I start to watch him, I mean, this is also the second episode, but my opinion on Dan is he's not playing Survivor to win $1 million. He's playing Survivor to be known. He wants to be like a Rupert. He wants to be like a Russell Hantz. He wants to have a hook, some notoriety. And I think Lindsay, in her little confessional, couldn't have said it more beautifully about how she thinks it's all a ploy and he's just trying to be funny. And you know, in the first episode, Dan did say, "You will not forget me." And I think he's more focused on not being forgotten as a castaway than he is about winning $1 million.
Yeah, I kind of can understand that. I kind of see that point of view. Oh, hold on a second. We got
Mr. Popular over here.
Yeah, well, actually, that's Keaton. Keaton wants to call in. Keaton, if you're listening to us or if you're tuning on to us on AfterBuzz TV, contact Marissa for the number. Anyway, let's just, what were we saying? So yeah, so I agree with you as far as Dan's concerned. Dan is, you know, he's there for the notoriety. He's a super fan, but I think he knows, you know what I think? I think he sees people like Johnny Fairplay.
Yeah.
You know, people who've played this game like Russell Hantz, and they haven't won, but they've gained so much notoriety.
Well, I think for me, it's so in your face, and I'm getting kind of annoyed with it already, and it's episode 2 that,
Yeah.
I mean, Dan could leave and it's not going to faze me at all. There's other big players in the game that I'm rooting for that are just being themselves and completely going with the flow that stand out to me. Like Max, you know, he's also a student of the game, a huge super fan.
Yeah.
But he's going to have notoriety because he is playing the game as a Survivor would, whereas with Dan,
well,
I don't know.
Look,
I'm not anti-Dan. I don't dislike him. He's funny to watch, but I'm just kind of it's getting old.
The longer Dan lasts, the more likely he can, who knows, maybe he can pull something out. Who knows what his strategy is. It's really awkward. It's really weird. I mean, he took leadership. I mean, we commented last week, he took leadership right away for the opening dilemma.
He did.
And a super fan probably knows to hang back just enough not to take the leadership role. So, you know, so we have that. And I think also he's turning his shirt into underwear
Like
because
a little skirt of some sort.
because he doesn't want to raw dog it. Because that's what he said. I don't want to raw dog it. It's going to tear me apart.
Before he said that, he goes, "What? Would you rather me quit?" I'm like, why is he always on the defense? Why does he always have to have some snide remark to the girls? I just think he's just putting more of a target onto him as the days go by.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad he lost the banana hammock just because we don't have to see that anymore.
Which is funny because Keaton commented on it last week.
Yeah, I know exactly because Keaton commented on that, and I think that was a very, that was something a lot of people probably would agree on. So we don't get to see that anymore. At least we get to see this shirt thing when he's walking around in it. But
I'm just glad. Well, I hope that we never have to hear the word manties again, because manties just not going to happen.
That's
just never
weird
will.
word. It makes me feel weird when I hear that.
And I'm surprised CBS didn't make it a hashtag.
I'm surprised they didn't. Did you see any hashtags? No, I didn't see any.
Maybe I was too busy writing the notes down. No. Manties, stop trying to make it happen. It's not going to happen.
I didn't see that. So, but here, Lindsay was talking about, obviously, he's shifting gears. He's being goofy now. And I think Dan even realizes he's trying to change it up a little bit. And he's still on the chopping block, but if there's one person that is starting to move down there with him in the doghouse, it's Mike.
Yes.
And that's funny because I think all three of us agreed that Rodney and Mike were probably two of the hits from the blue team, two of the bigger players from the blue team last week.
Right.
And here Mike is going now. And, Mike goes all out, but this is the bad side of going all out.
He's taking blue collar so literal and just kind of running with it. I mean, power to him and kudos that he loves to work hard and that he thrives on being a hard worker. But sometimes in the game of Survivor, you need to pull back the reins a little bit and not ruffle feathers. Just because people are not on the same work level as you doesn't mean they're not really providing around camp. I mean, they even put up a good fight. Like, we do stuff here and there, and we'll see next week in the preview for next week's episode that the girls were like, we go get firewood too. So I don't know. He's taking the role of blue collar very seriously, but just because no one's on his level doesn't mean that he should get really uptight and start calling people out on it. Yeah. Everyone works at their own pace, and I think he's also shooting himself in the foot.
Well, yeah, and he is one of the older players, at least on that team. He's the older player, so obviously the younger ones want to play around. They're playing a little. Even Dan wants to play basketball, so he's trying to bond in that way. So we're noticing that little shift too. I think between age in that tribe. I've been noticing, like with all three of these tribes. We'll get into it. It's definitely a little bit of an age difference dynamic. No matter what your methodology, no matter if you're playing as a white collar, blue collar, no collar, it seems like there is a division with age more or less within all three.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So very, very interesting as far as that. Let's move over to the white collar tribe because we talked a little bit about this. But, whereas Dan decided when he lost his underwear or his banana hammock to just at least show some, decency, some modesty and put something on, even if it is his shirt. Oh, by the way, I want to say something about Dan, too. I hate seeing his hairy chest. That's first of all. But second of all, he is going to, I really think he's going to burn himself up unless I know they hand out like tampons to the women out there behind the scenes, but unless they hand out sunblock, that guy is going to have a killer sunburn on his back.
The only killer sunburn I ever remembered was Cochran. He was red, and I can see that really happening.
And I think if he really, and plus not only that, you're putting your junk all over your shirt. Even if he puts that thing back on, who knows? I don't think I'd want to.
You never know. They might put it up on eBay when the show's over for charity,
don't give them any ideas.
Thousands of dollars. There's some crazy super fans out there, I'm sure, that would love to have Dan's little manty skirt.
Oh God, yeah.
I just used the word. I'm really upset about that.
Yeah, you're using the word, man. You're using the word. Anyway, so whereas Dan at least is showing some modicum of decorum and decency and in covering up his junk, Max is, another super fan. Of course, he's the Survivor professor. He's taking another approach. He's tipping his hat, and who knows what else he's tipping, by completely getting undressed and just going au naturel, as Richard Hatch did back in the All-Star season.
I loved that, being a fan, seeing someone like Max who has really called himself the student, fan, and teacher of Survivor. I love that he's enjoying it, but he's also playing the game. And he just tipping his hat, like you said, to the greatest people that have ever come before him.
Yeah.
I like it. It's just season 30, so it's fun to remember previous players. And I also would have to agree with Tyler when Tyler said that I feel like that Max is trying to do this to distract us on how smart he really is. And I can see that kind of being Max's case too.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's an interesting, you know, first of all, I'm really curious to see if Max has other homages later on in the season.
I can't
like,
wait.
Does he have like a fake grandmother that died too when the loved
maybe
ones
he'll
come
steal
or something?
someone's shoes,
Maybe
like Rupert did.
or like the Johnny Fairplay I was talking about.
Yeah, or dump the rice into the fire for Jatia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering, like, every week, are we going to see little Easter eggs from Max?
Hey, I would love to see that.
But what do you think of his strategy? Because, look, when Richard Hatch did it, I think I don't know, what do you think the difference is between Richard Hatch doing this for strategy's sake and Max doing this
I think the difference is it was season 1 of Survivor. No one really knew how to play the game.
Well, I think the All-Stars is when really he was doing the all-natural thing, right?
No,
Was he doing it in season 1 too?
That's what he was known for in the first season,
Okay.
was being like the naked guy, the naked gay guy, as Rudy would say.
Okay.
He, I think, didn't know how to play. No one knew how to play the game in the first season of Survivor. So I feel like Richard used that as strategy to make him like, I don't know really what he was doing. It's still whatever. It's Survivor. You're in like a primitive state. You're in the jungle. You're in the wild. Why not bear it all? And now that it's season 30, Max, it doesn't faze anybody. It's no shock like it was. It has no shock value like it was with Richard Hatch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. But at the same time, Max says that he discovered that he gets alone time.
That's true.
When he's by himself and no one bothers him.
But it's like, do you really have to be naked to get alone time? I feel like I would just walk down a trail to where the watering hole is, where a tree mail is, and just sit. I feel like people would understand.
Well, I guess
that he wants to be alone right now and not bother him.
Perhaps.
Maybe you don't have to be naked to get alone time.
Well, I think what's interesting about it, first of all, I mean, sometimes being alone in a group dynamic goes against you because it gives other people a chance to talk and perhaps plot your demise. So sometimes that's not a good thing. I think he's in a comfortable place being with Carolyn and Shirin, if I could say her name right, Shirin. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, Shirin and Carolyn, at least they have a 3-person alliance out of that 5-person tribe, so he feels comfortable. I also think it's a position of power. So because if anyone wants to walk up to him, they have to deal with it. They have to deal with the awkwardness of it. So if they need him, you got to walk up to. If you want to talk to me, obviously you need me because you're willing to be uncomfortable around my naked ass.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't know how much longer the alone time is going to last because clearly, as we saw, Shireen, she said that he's a trendsetter. He's a fan just like me. And so she took it off too.
Another super
fan. I mean,
fan.
it was interesting that she took her bottoms off. I would assume the top, but the bottoms, not the top.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't. I don't know.
That was kind of gross to me for some reason.
And then poor Tyler, he's married, so he's just trying not to like make a big fuss about it. I mean, you could clearly see on his body language and his face that he was just so uncomfortable.
That was probably one of the best scenes I've ever seen on this show because not only that, it just lasted forever. It was like a comedy sketch. It really was. Shireen just kept getting closer and closer to him, bending down, and Tyler with his hand up and just looking away, and Joaquin just staring into space himself. But it was pretty hilarious. But I think, whereas Max is using being alone, being naked, but to be alone.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Keaton.
Hi, Keaton.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
So sorry I can't be in. I'm fine. I'm so sorry I can't be in studio tonight. I apologize.
That's no problem.
We miss you.
Yeah, we do. We're talking about we've talked about Dan and his
Manties.
shirt. I wasn't going to say it. You said it.
Manties.
And then we were talking about Max going on natural, and now we're discussing the difference between Max going on natural and being alone, and Shireen taking her bottoms off and just like showing it, rubbing it pretty much in Tyler and Joaquin's faces practically.
I'm sorry. That's so awkward. Like, I was like kind of appalled, like a little appalled by the fact that she took her bottoms off. Like, I mean, it's one thing if you're just going to bear all, but the fact that she took her bottoms off and like, not her top, I don't know. It just seemed a little odd to me and seemed a little like attention grabbing. I mean, more power to her if you're comfortable being in your birthday suit, like, whatever. But, like, I mean, just having heard stories from the crew, nobody likes it really when people get butt naked on that show. Nobody enjoys it.
And I would have to agree with you. I thought it was strange that she took the bottoms off opposed to the top. Like, it would make more sense to me if it was just the top, but just the bottoms. I don't know. I mean, she's also doing it without getting peanut butter and chocolate too. So I mean, she's just bearing it all with nothing to gain.
And she's cleaning pots like that, and she's like on top of, like she's bending over these pots that she's going to be cleaning. It was just, there's all sorts of wrong there.
Yeah, talking about crabs, and so I was just like, this just seemed like an attention thing, or like she just wants to be like a memorable Survivor contestant, so she's going to be like the chick who takes off her bottom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait, Keaton, speaking of memorable Survivor contestants, this is something we talked about before you called in, and I would love to know your take on it. I was telling Nando that I strongly feel that Dan is more focused on being remembered as a player as opposed to playing to win $1 million. Would you agree with me?
I would absolutely agree with you on that one, James. I think he's just trying to be the funny guy. I think he's like, there's no way I can win this game, so I'm going to go into Survivor so that I can make a job out of it and hopefully get called back to future seasons because I'm a character.
Right.
Which I feel like a lot of people try to go in that way now, and it frustrates me because I just, like, it then turns into the same game for them. It's like, I don't believe he was, like, yes, he might have been a fan, he might have watched it since, you know, it started, but when you come in and play the game and you're acting the way you're acting, obviously you're not a real player. You're, like, and I almost agreed with the girls that, like, you know, really you lost your weenie bikini, like, I don't know how that
weenie
happened,
bikini.
so.
That's better than mantis.
Yeah, it is better than mantis. Or a banana hammock. But still, yeah, no, we totally are on the same page with that when it comes to Dan.
I'm glad you feel the same way, Keaton, because I could not help but feel that way. And I was just like, you know, if he wants to be invited back in the future, you need to be a character. But by being a character, you need to make big moves and play the game of Survivor, not play the game of the fame game. I'm going to ride my 15 minutes and be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be the Tonys, you need to be the Spencers, you need to be the Malcolms. You need to be, I'm trying to think of like even like a Jatia, honestly, as crazy as she was, I think it was just completely her. She like felt like her backs were against the wall. But like if somebody like her, that's a memorable player who maybe is not considered a hard player, that you would want to have back, you know, she's going to throw the pat. Dan just kind of annoys me. He's just a clown, and I don't like it.
Well, we'll get more on Dan in the challenge. But you know, one thing I want to bring up before, since we're on the white collar tribe, that I don't want to forget is Tyler had a really good quote in his little confessional about Max. I don't know how much of Max being naked. He said, I don't know how much of it is a show, and how much of it is him trying to distract us from how smart and how well he knows the game.
That's what I really think it is.
So I agree with that. Go ahead, Keaton.
I disagree with that. I disagree. I think Max is just such a fan of Survivor. He loves this game so much. He freaking taught a course that he knows it very well as well. But I honestly think it truly is. He wants to reap as much as he can from his Survivor experience. And I mean, Richard Hatch is the original Survivor, so why not enjoy a dip every once in a while? I mean, once you do it once in your birthday suit in front of everybody, I'm sure it just becomes like you don't even realize you're doing it. And I think it also, what he said in the episode, that, hey, you know, this is a chance for me to be able to go up by myself and kind of like think and like not be bothered by people. And I think that is so smart as a player to remember that you need those times to get away. You need those times to kind of self-reflect, to be a better player in this game and to be able to look at the whole picture. So I think it's a very smart move. But I don't think he's doing it in a way that Tyler thinks he's doing it.
Well, we were saying... Yeah, go ahead.
Just to comment before I move forward, from the other perspective, the way that I look at it, I agree with you, Kate, and I think he is such a super fan, student, and teacher of Survivor that he wants to really just indulge in every sense of the show and the game and the experience, which I love. But I also think there's a part of him that's like, if I show my other competitors that I'm enjoying the experience, they're not going to think that I'm playing hard and playing the game. And that's why I do think it is in some way a strategic move.
Well, it's a little. I think it could be a little from column A, a little from column B. I totally get the whole experience. We were saying before you got on the phone, Keaton. I really want to see if he does other homages in future weeks, throwing the rice in the fire, or
stealing people's shoes.
Yeah, or having a fake grandmother that
socks.
died or something, burning socks. So yeah, hopefully we'll see a little like this week, Max is giving props to Rupert, or whatever. Anyway, let's. Yeah.
Can I say something else really quick before you guys move on from this? I don't know if they've touched on this or if this is like a known fact, but has he told the rest of is it a known thing amongst his tribe that he has taught a course on Survivor?
No.
I'm under the impression it's not.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, even when he did his introduction in the first week, last week, and he asked what he did, I think he said he was a marketing consultant. So yeah. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want anyone to know. I wouldn't want anyone to know if I was him, because automatically.
And I agree with you. I just didn't know because Tyler, with the way Tyler's interview kind of was edited, it seemed like Tyler knew that he had like above and beyond kind of knowledge of this game, which might just be Tyler's skill of reading people. Of like, they're not going to put this hipster like.
Well, they all seem to know that. Yeah, they all seem to know that Sharon's also a super fan. Everyone seems to know who the super fans are. So I have a feeling maybe
like a campfire conversation that they're not airing. Because I mean, if everyone's a super fan, you're going to want to talk about it.
Yeah. So I have a feeling it's more like a super fan, but I think it's different to be a super fan than to say, oh, I actually taught a class
exactly
on this. I've analyzed and studied every single season. So I think that would put a bigger target on your back, honestly. All right, let's move on. Let's start talking about the Red Tribe, because that's where a lot of drama came from. Let's start off with Nina, because I think this is really interesting. I mean, we saw her. Well, first of all, the No Collar Tribe was all about this is a community last week, and other than the little Joe Vince, friction, they were all like one big happy family.
Right.
Now this week we start seeing all the real craziness start coming out, starting with Nina. We were curious to see how Nina, being completely deaf with those implants, would be able to communicate, with a tribe when she has to mainly watch everybody as they're talking to really, really understand people still. And we see like a montage really of everyone trying to deal with this.
Right.
But Nina seems to have a problem with the girls. Because I guess the girls, there was a comment from one of the other tribe members that the girls, I think it was Will, said that the girls have been a little snarky in their comments, and then of course they went skinny dipping. That was the one time I wanted to see nudity. The girls went out to see skinny dipping, and I saw a shot of Jen looking down at Nina as they were about to go, but I guess Nina felt she was excluded.
I think that when you're in a situation like that with new people that don't really know the adversities you face in the real world, especially for being deaf, I feel like subconsciously she's kind of ostracized herself.
Yeah.
I don't think she should have this expectation that people should come to her. And just because people aren't, she's automatically making it an issue about her being deaf. And I think that's normal in the real world. I think everyone's already quick to play on an insecurity that like, oh, it's because of this or it's because of that. So I feel like it was a little bit too dramatic for my taste. I can understand why Nina was frustrated, but the same thing happened with Christy on Survivor Amazon. Yeah. It's like you automatically are ostracizing yourself because you know you're different, but you're not making an effort either. So you can't blame people if you're not going to put in the effort. Because I never really saw Nina putting in the effort. I saw Haley trying to get to know her and do stuff with her. So I don't know.
What do you think, Keaton?
I mean, I would absolutely agree because, I mean, it doesn't make it any easier that there is that age difference.
Right.
There always seems to be a tribe when you do break it up into these three tribes where it seems like it's the hot young tribe. And whenever you have that hot young tribe, you're gonna get that alliance of like all like the colleges. The one that comes to mind honestly is in South Pacific, the Savai'i tribe, and they had kind of like the Pretty People Alliance, is what a lot of people called it. And it was like Keith and Whitney, and I remember just like Cochran felt left out, and Dawn felt left out, and I feel like that happens often in Survivor. And as like an older woman, I don't think she played it the right way socially. I think she I feel like she could have like used the hearing thing as a way to kind of educate and entice and intrigue these girls, but instead I feel like I agree with you, James. Like she just kind of she made
Because I don't think anyone cares that
the
she's
girls
deaf.
really, really tried.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they all have that mentality of, there's no collar, of everybody love everybody no matter what. But I honestly wouldn't ask a woman who could be the same age as my mother to come skinny dipping with me if I had only known her for 4 days.
Yeah, no, that's a
well, but Haley and Jen only known each other for 4 days, and they still went. But yeah, I get it. She's more of a mom anyway.
Well, I think
that's the thing. They're like the same age, and they obviously it's a relatable thing, you know.
It is, and I think, you brought up South Pacific, but I think another example to bring up would be Survivor Vanuatu, when it was men versus women. And you saw on the female tribe, the younger girls like Julie, Amy, Eliza, and Leanne kind of getting together. But Lisa, who is kind of the balance of like, she related to the older women, but she also put herself in the situations to relate to the younger women. I feel like Nina could be playing that approach too, like Lisa did in Vanuatu, where it's like, I'm going to play the motherly figure.
Yeah.
I'm going to put myself in the situation, but I do think that her being deaf, she's holding herself back because of
I think
adversity she's faced in the real world.
She's overly sensitive to the subject,
and that's understandable.
But there were some funny moments, like even the first scene that we saw with Haley and Nina. Haley's telling Nina, "There's a blister on your ankle," and Nina turns around and goes, "Oh, that's nice." So obviously there was a misinterpretation there as to what that's supposed to.
I wonder what she thought.
Why is that nice?
Yeah,
Nina, I don't know.
And I'm so curious. Like, I would love to talk to Nina and just, or anybody who understands like the science behind the procedure she went through to gain her hearing back,
right?
And actually how much she can actually hear. So I would be so curious, and that's like a person my age who can relate to, like, obviously the two younger girls. Like that's something that I'd be like, oh, this is a great way to connect. Like learn from her. Like obviously she had this like kind of crazy, like a little bit unfortunate life experience that she's been able to break through, and now she's a contestant on Survivor. Like, I feel like the knowledge that those girls could gain from Nina is just like insurmountable. So it does make me sad that that was the situation.
Yeah, well, playing the victim card, because that's really what Nina ended up doing. I'm saying it a little bluntly, but she was kind of playing the victim card when she was crying and everything. I mean, that got a little bit of sympathy with Will and with Vince. I mean, Vince was saying a no-collar person is a kind-hearted, heart-centered, compassionate human being.
Which I laughed about because I'm like, no. I don't think just because you're no collar, that's what defines you.
Especially after we see him already getting all pissy at Joe and and competitive for Jen.
And even Jen said he's a little too no collar at heart for his own good.
Oh yeah,
he's like Mike. He's taking that role, that label, and running with it and taking it very literal on Survivor.
Well, even Vince, there was another line that Vince said about you got to be able to hug people. Oh, in my life I have a comfortable, loving relationship with people. 10 seconds of beauty, peace, and bliss, but not with Joe. So obviously he has issues, and he loves those big, long, awkward hugs like we saw in week 1 with Jen. That she ended up saying we smell bad. So
Nando,
yeah.
I think it was Nando who said this, or James, I don't know, but I think whoever said it, you bring up a good point about how he has taken his label that the show gave him almost too far, and I think a lot of the contestants are starting to do that. And the longer they're kind of with their tribe and with their group, you can see it kind of in their confessionals and in their OTS and all of that stuff. So I would be very interested to see if that's just something that develops naturally amongst them because of just like the dynamic of the show, or if that's something that was kind of forced upon them.
I wonder if it affects their psyche.
Know.
I wonder if it totally affects their psyche.
Like circumstantial.
And their circumstances. Yeah. I could totally see that happening. So anyway, we have a bit of a division in the Red Tribe. We're gonna rush this. We only have about 10 minutes left on this one because we had to start a little late. But there is a bit of a division. I mean, Nina's talking to Will. Nina talking to Vince. Vince sees this as a perfect opportunity because any excuse he can to try and plot against Joe, he will take advantage of.
Yes.
So we definitely see that division, and we saw Vince confronting Joe. That was a really weird confrontation about how Vince needs acknowledgement.
Well, it's when Joe came back with that sack of crabs, and Vince like automatically was like, "I need validation. I don't want my work to go unnoticed." And thinking, "Oh Lord, Vince, come on."
No, it's pretty crazy, but we definitely see the lines have been drawn. And you know, this is all before the immunity challenge, the reward challenge, and just based on all the drama on that group, I kind of knew already going in that we were going to have a tribal council full with no collars.
Oh, for sure. But it was so up in the air, too, like how tribal would play out.
Yeah, it was so up in the air. But let's talk a little bit about the immunity challenge, because a couple of things I thought was really, really cool. First of all, Dan, you know, we saw in the blue team and the red team had to choose somebody out just to make the tribes even for this big underwater, or this big, it wasn't underwater, but moving that buoy across all those obstacles.
Yes.
And Kelly, the state trooper, who we've barely heard
Who is
a peep
Kelly?
from. I know, we've barely
Who
heard.
is she? And she sits out in the challenge. I'm like, really?
She's a
Who
state
are
trooper.
you?
She's buff. She could totally probably just kill this challenge based on what I could tell. And Dan is an assistant on playing.
I'm gonna show that fat people can do this or whatever he said.
But he did good.
You did great.
He did well. 9 out of 10 times when we
Gosh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I was a little like proud of him because he was pissing me off so much in the episode. And then he had that cocky kind of remark to us of like, oh, you think the fat boy can't swim? Well, you know.
Yeah. Well,
I'll prove you wrong. And then he did, and I love when you see somebody kind of. I love an underdog story, and I feel like that was a little mini underdog story we got within this episode.
So you like Dan a little bit after that? That's what you're saying? A little bit.
I don't need to see him in his Winnie the Pooh or fake shirt thing, but you know, I am proud to see somebody who maybe a lot of people prejudged him prove them wrong. That's always that's a nice thing.
Well, you know, 9 out of 10 times when we hear someone, you know, take an insistent position, like I can do puzzles or I can do this, I can do that before the challenge, 9 out of 10 times it means you're going to screw up. This is like the one time that he actually, you know, he was able to cash a check that his mouth, you know, put up there. Right. So, you know, he did really well. And, you know, it was a pretty neck and neck race. White Collar was behind for a bit of it. And I really thought when Shireen, excuse me, God, I gotta get that name right. Shireen was playing. I thought it was going to be another choke. I thought she was another Jatia, you know, just doing terrible in challenges and losing it for her team. But unfortunately, Will was just that bad.
I was going to say, if we want to talk about a choke, let's talk about Will.
I don't know if that was a choke, but Will just was exhausted and couldn't play.
Couldn't pull it together.
Yeah.
No, you guys, let me say something. Because first of all, I think challenges like this, again, shout out to John Kerhofer, when a challenge runs like this on Survivor, it's phenomenal. You have a team that's able to come back. You can never, like, throughout the entire challenge, guess who's going to win. Yeah. I mean, these are the challenges that are the ones that they bring back that are like, oh, why I love Survivor challenges. But having done a challenge similar to this that I tested in, gosh, I think it was in Philippines, where it was individual immunity and we had to move a buoy. Like, it is so hard to move that buoy. I don't know how they were all moving it that fast. I don't know if they if they changed it a little bit or whatnot, but I remember when I did it, it was so difficult, and it's even more difficult when the rope is in the water because the rope sinks, but the buoy floats, and it so easily gets tangled, and you just get discombobulated. So I feel so bad for Will, but that is something that's so hard. I'm surprised it didn't happen to more people.
Yeah, well, it didn't. Well, you know, Will said it was the black man's kryptonite being in the water. So Will did say that.
Will.
But Will was really out of breath at the end of that. He wasn't just being slow. It really exhausted him, and that also became a little bit of a factor when Red Tribe, unfortunately, for them at least, lost the challenge. Yep. So we pretty much are, let's move on to a little bit before a tribal council, just a lot of the posturing, of course. We've got 3-on-3. I was really surprised with Joe's mentality. Joe and Jen, who seems to be a super fan too, even though they haven't promoted her as, or talked about her as one.
Right.
Were really afraid that Nina, because of her outburst before and the fact that she knew she was on the, you know, on the chopping block, they really were concerned that she might have found an idol or that Vince might have. Which I think was a little overthinking on their part, so they ended up bringing, they ended up bringing Will in, who was not in their alliance, to split the vote, which I think is a recipe for disaster.
I just didn't understand. There's such a sequence of events that played up to the tribal council, like what you were saying, and then the fact that Will went to the other side, went to Vince and Nina and told them the plan. I was like, I'm so confused. And I'm surprised that they didn't really consider voting out Will more seriously.
Yeah.
Because I would have easily thrown out Will's name, and I would have been persistent at pushing for Will's name because he clearly could not hold his own in the challenge.
Yeah,
and if there's going to be more swimming challenges, which they are on a beach, it's more likely to happen. He's not going to be able to pull through.
Yeah.
And it's a tribe game. It's not an individual game right now. And if you want to keep your tribe the strongest, I thought Will was the smarter vote.
No, go ahead, Keaton.
I mean, I think that the paranoia that we saw in the younger kind of alliance, I think that is that shows their age a lot. That, you know, just
Good
freaking
point.
out, because I think that was a really dumb thing to think about Nina potentially having the idol. Like, really, guys? Really? I mean, unless, like, they kept a ton of stuff out of the edit, but I just think that paranoia, it shows how young they are. But obviously they're players. But I think with Will, I mean, he was in that water for a while, treading by himself. I mean, obviously he's probably not the best in shape, but I just think that was a very difficult challenge. So I don't think that was a really good representation of his physical strength. And obviously Vince, yeah, he probably is a more physically fit, like, better asset to the tribe in challenges. But I think Will, like, mentality-wise, which is, we know is so important as a tribe unit, like, you had to get, everybody was being rubbed the wrong way by Vince. He was, like, starting up crap. I think he was the smarter vote.
Well, yeah, but I mean, leading up to that point, at least, I think that that Will's vote surprised everybody, because I think Joe and the girls all thought they were still going with splitting the vote 2 and 2 and having a revote. So I think there was a little bit of a surprise there, because Will was supposed to vote for Nina.
And Nina was shocked. And I think that Nina is going to crumble even more now, because she's going to feel even more on the outside
Isolated.
since Will did not vote the way that he said he was going to vote.
Let's move on, because we don't have much time anyway. Let's move on to the tribal council as far as Will's vote. I think, well, first of all, Will wanted to protect Nina. That was the reason why Will went over to talk to Vince and Nina, because Will felt some sympathy for Nina and felt like a kindred spirit. I guess he felt ostracized himself in his past. So he wanted to save Nina. And then, of course, Nina tells him about Vince saying he's out of shape or whatever, and was thinking about, how... And it was really... Nina was trying to be nice, saying, are you okay? Do you want to quit? Kind of thing. And Vince took offense to that.
Yeah.
I think that makes... I mean, Will took offense to that. I think that makes Will a little emotional. I don't know if it was the smartest decision to get rid of Vince. I agree that for the cohesiveness of this community, as they like to call it, it was probably the best option, because having Vince there, he's just gonna, as Jen said earlier in the episode, she just doesn't trust him. He's gonna screw everything up at some point, maybe in a merge.
But it's like, if you already know of someone's intentions, if you already know that Vince is not going to be someone trustworthy, it's like, okay, we already are aware of how he's going to play this game, so he's not as much of a threat anymore.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, when people show you...
This is the thing. I feel like if they would have ended up blindsiding Nina, and Vince would have stayed, I think Vince would have gone even crazier than he already is. I think he would have pulled a Tia. I think he would have wanted to take down the camp because they don't like love and they're not in unity and blah, blah, blah.
They're not riding the wave.
I think that would have sent him over the edge.
Yeah, good point.
I think it was smarter to get him out before Nina, because I think he would have tried to destroy the tribe from the inside out.
Yeah, no, I agree. But still, we see this when you have a really athletic player leave a tribe early in the game. It really, I mean, the tribe dynamic may be better, but you see them at tribal council a whole lot more often. So that's the one danger.
We saw So leave last week.
What's that?
They did just fine. We saw So leave last week, and she was probably one of the most athletic people they had on that tribe.
No, that's true. That's a good point. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I think it remains to be seen if the decision was a good one, if Will could still stand up to the pressure in the next couple of weeks, and how it gets handled. But, I think Vince, in a way, I hate to say it, was just I'm sure if he sees his footage, he would realize he was playing a little creepy and a little weird.
I think he kind of said that too in his exit interview of they got him, and he kind of seemed like he put on his glasses and he saw things clearer once he got kicked out. It was a little bit of a swift kick in the butt of reality check for him. And so I don't think he's as crazy as he came off on the show.
I agree.
I agree. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up, I believe, more or less about everything about last week's episode. Let's we didn't do this last week, so let's do it this week. Let's talk about some predictions.
Yes.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
You know what? I can't remember what I saw from next week's show.
Well, we saw that Mike is again on the hot seat
that's
for
right.
being too controlling. It seems like him and Rodney have a spat. We see Jen and Haley's relationship growing a little bit more. So I think we're in for some drama next week for sure.
Well, that's for
I
sure.
think, oh,
Go ahead,
is it my
Keith.
turn?
Yeah, it's your turn. Sure, it's your turn.
I completely agree with James, the fact that Nina's going to crumble even more now that Vince is gone. I also think we are going to see the white collar tribe. I think they're gonna start coasting because I think there's gonna be so much discourse within the other two tribes that the white collar tribe's gonna kind of start being the team to beat, which is going to be it's a little surprising for me personally, but you know.
Well, I definitely see. I don't know if the white collar team's going to coast. I think blue collar's still too strong, even with the drama that we see with Rodney and Mike. I mean, that team, unless it's like unless there's like some kind of weird challenge, I think the blue team's definitely going to at least place in the first two.
Sure.
They're just too strong.
I think that too.
So I think they're going to be around for a while. Yeah, I just think that we're going to see some more Nina action. She's obviously on the out. She's going to feel a lot more ostracized. I think that's about it.
Well, since we are talking about predictions, I do want to tell everyone that we are doing Fantasy Survivor, and we would love for you all to join our tribe. Head on over to fantasysurvivor.net and join Tribe AfterBuzz TV. Last week there was a little bit of a mistake in the password. I told everyone it was just AfterBuzz, but it was AfterBuzz TV, all lowercase. I changed the settings, so now there should not be a password. So we would love to welcome everyone into our tribe.
Awesome.
Help us gain points to be the #1 tribe in Fantasy Survivor. But right now the standings are I'm in first place, Nando's in second, Keaton's in third, and then Shauna's in fourth, and Dane's in fifth. So we have about 20 people right now on our tribe, and those are the top 5. So make sure you get your picks in before next week's episode and join in on the fun with us.
Great. And James, where can we find you to talk about that or anything else?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at James Wallington, on Instagram at Mr. James Wally, and my YouTube channel, Where's Wallington.
Awesome. And Keaton, where can we find you during the week when you're not in studio like now?
You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Keaton Markey.
Okay, awesome. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nandovel, Nandovel, and here on AfterBuzz for a whole bunch of other shows. But for Survivor, we'll be back next week, I believe at this time, Thursdays at 5 Pacific. Catch us then. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.